Okay. Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our PPI critique event. We are super excited to have this for the first time. We're doing this on Zoom. We've got an amazing lineup of judges. As a quick introduction, my name is Jen Alvey. I am current president of Professional Photographers of Idaho. And we have our convention image chair and co-chair. We have Phil White, wave over there, and Sherry Barron, who is not visible on screen. And they are helping us run this event today. So we're super grateful for them. I'd love to have us introduce, I'm going to have the judges introduce themselves so they can do it properly. And then we'll get into some of the housekeeping stuff. So we've got Tony Harriman, Dennis Hammond, and Dwight Okamoto. So if you want to just go in that order, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, Tony Harriman from Iowa, where it's a balmy 7 degrees this morning, and super excited to be here and look at your images with you guys.
Good morning. Good morning, Dennis Hammond. Of course, y'all know me, Idaho Falls, Idaho. Happy to be here to share and look at your images.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dwight Okamoto, and I don't want to really tell everybody we're at 70 in the 70s and it's warm and I have only shorts on and it's going to be a nice day.
Wonderful. Well, and you probably all saw in the graphic that I had been putting out for a while now, all of their amazing accomplishments and credentials. So we know we are going to be well taken care of today. And I think real quick before we go over stuff pertaining to this event, I do want to just put a quick plug to our upcoming, I'm going to share the screen real quick. In case you didn't know, we have an upcoming convention. This is going to be April 6th through the 10th, but the 6th is a pre-con class with Lindsay Adler. And then the rest of the 4 days will be with the presenters, as you can see below. They can be purchased separately or together. It's going to be a hybrid event for the convention minus Lindsay. That will be in person only, but it's going to be an amazing event. And the reason I wanted to also share that is because those of you here have images that are being looked over, we are also going to have, let me put it over here, an image competition on the 7th. That's the first day of our convention. And we've got an amazing lineup of judges there as well. This can be anybody in or out of state can enter for score. We do have one award for the best of out of state. So there is one award, and anybody, including out of state contributors, can enter what's called our print share challenge. And this year the theme is going to be symmetry. So it's an additional $25 to enter that particular challenge. But the reward is when the judges select the single winning image, that individual will receive half of the money that was contributed for that challenge. So it has a cash prize, which is pretty fun. But it's also wonderful for those that might be entering districts and IPC. You will, at our state level, get an actual score. So that's a fun way to get some feedback on your images. So just wanted to give you a little heads up on that coming up. And you can go to ppofidaho.com if you want to submit images or register for our convention. Okay, I've done the plug. Let's go ahead and get to some housekeeping things. First off, I'd like to let Phil talk a little bit about our monitors, calibration, what we might be seeing versus what the judges might be seeing, especially for those of you that might be newer to this space and understanding how that works, just to get a feel of what that entails.
All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen here for a moment. And so many of you know that, can everyone see that?
Yes.
That monitors vary from computer to computer, from monitor brand to monitor brand. And so for digital judging, really for photography in general, there's really kind of a general standard that is now in place for monitor calibration. And so as we're going through the judging process, you're probably judges that may be seeing things that you don't see on your monitor because they're on calibrated, very carefully calibrated monitors. This is perhaps a chart that might give you an idea of what your screen is doing. So on the left and on the right, you'll notice it says A should not be visible, B should be at the edge of visibility, C should be visible. And on the right, Z should not be visible, Y should be at the edge of visibility, and X should be visible. For those of you who are right on the ball and adjusting your monitors, bravo. If you're looking at the black and go, gee, I can only see C and I can't see B and A, that means your monitor shadows are a little on the dark side. So the judges actually might be seeing something in the shadows that you're not seeing. And so be aware of that. For those of you who are on calibrated monitors, the screen should come up and go, oh yeah, everything's perfect. So anyway, just be mindful that the judges are on very carefully calibrated, both in color and in contrast. And so they're actually, this is the same type of monitor setup that is going to be used in state, district, and IPC judging. So might be aware of that. So anyway, there it is. And I'll go ahead and return it back to you, Jen.
Awesome. I'm curious, is that a graphic that we could share for those who might want to see that again later to adjust
Absolutely.
their monitors?
Absolutely. I don't see any reason why we can't.
Okay. We will maybe put it in our group page or email it or whatever, but I love that. Thank you. That was really helpful. Now, just so you know how this is going to work today, it's a little different than traditional actual judging for a competition. Our judges are going to, well, how it's going to work. First off, please be muted, and when we get started, at least have your video off to help with bandwidth. Anything that you might want to ask once, so first of all, I'll back it up again. How it's going to work is Phil White is going to announce the title when we're ready, and then he's going to share the screen, so we're all going to see the image that the judges are also seeing on their computers about the same moment. And then the judges will be texting a score to Sherry Barron, which she will very quickly, like magic, get the average and get the title and that score posted in the chat. That is where you're going to see the average score. Then we're going to open up to the judges to then share the score that they individually gave, as well as some thoughts around the image and ways to improve. Please note, the reason we are having this feedback is so that we can become better as image makers, so that we can learn some ways to see the images that we haven't seen before. These people have been trained for many moons, and will notice things that maybe you didn't notice. So I highly recommend that you go ahead and put on your thick skin coat and take it as a gift when you hear things that could really benefit and improve your image. I know I've entered for a few years now, and it is so much better for me to hear these things before I actually, if I'm entering, before I've entered, so I have a chance to reevaluate and potentially correct some of those things if possible, or start with a new image or whatever. Some images are just, maybe they don't have really good bones, if you will, to develop it into something that could score higher. And so these are just things you have to know going into it. And we're super grateful that they're willing to be here. If after they have, anytime when that image is up, if you want to in the chat, ask a question. The judges are not going to be looking at the chat screen. That'll be closed out on their computers. And so they won't know who is asking. You don't have to be the maker to ask a question, but obviously if the maker is here and they have a question, would be priority on asking that. It does take a minute to type something and send it in chat. So be very quick if you want something asked right away. But because of that, we're also considering at the end of the critiques, opening it back up to people who have now thought about that image and that critique. If they want to ask a question, they can identify in the chat the title of the image and the question, and then we will see what we can do to pull that image up and give it just another quick look, time permitting. Just a reminder, if you were asking questions, to be as specific as possible. We would like for you to not just give open-ended general questions, but referring to your image, such as, do you feel that this area is too light or too dark? Did I have the cutout work okay here? Do you feel like the matting, just something specific to that image is super helpful. And in case you didn't catch the memo, please do not use the chat as an area to have commentary or thoughts and applause or whatever. Please keep that privately between you. We want the chat specifically questions that would go to our judges. let's see, what else do I have? This will be recorded as a reminder, so just note that. And then probably about 11, if we don't hear sooner, we'll have a little break. So any questions so far on how this will unfold?
May I make a couple comments, Jen?
Yes, please do, Dennis.
Okay, well, I think all the judges will agree with me that we're here to help you, and we're not here to be mean or be angry or anything towards your images. We're here to help you ascertain. Therefore, PPA has set up some systems for us, and we really adhere to that. And it was set into the Facebook messages, and you can find the scoring system. And there's 7 categories that the judges look at. And first of all, when the judges look at an image, they determine which category they feel the image is in, and then a score within that category. And so, when we start looking at these images and you think, oh, it's above average, it's one of those images that probably need a little tweaking and it could go up further. And so it's just one of those things that don't take it personal. If it goes into a certain category, there's always work that can be done. And to achieve those scores and those numerical scores, we look at 12 elements of a merit image, and those are all in the card as well, and you can look at them. An image doesn't have to have all 12, but it needs to have a representation of a number of them to make the image valid within our reasoning. And I think when we do our critiques, each judge is going to try to address an element to help you understand what we see, why it didn't score higher, or if it did score high, what brought it up that score. So just remember that we do have parameters we look at. We're here to help you out, and that's our goal, is to make these better images for you.
Thank you, Dennis. And just a reminder to please keep yourselves muted. If you do have anything to say, it will need to go in the chat, and it would also be helpful if you turn your video off. And I think the judges will probably be doing the same. I will keep mine on, but that will help with bandwidth as well. So exciting. Okay. So whenever, Phil, whenever you are ready, you can go ahead and screen share and lead us out with the images when you're ready.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll bring my screen up. Okay, and all right, judges all on frame 16. It's the frame right after the CPP still life setup. When everyone ready to go?
Just a
Yes.
second here. I got to get to 16. Okay.
All right, here we go. Girl with a curl. And I cannot see the chat. Hold on. $79.
Okay, Dwight, do you want to start with this?
Yeah, sure. I plugged in an 80. I feel this maker did a really nice job to get into close to the in the merit category. Sharpness is great. I think the retouching is done fine. As I'm looking at it now, there are a couple of things I'm just kind of picking up where a little more retouching could be done or upon the face to just watch out for small little details.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I plugged in a 79. This image does have some nice impact. We have beautiful subject matter here. I do think that there are some great qualities that Dwight mentioned on this. A couple little concerns that I had that kept me from going up into the merit category. One is the retouching on the inside parts of the eyes. I think that could have been done a little bit better. And the composition to me just feels a little bit too tight. I wish there was just a little bit more room at the bottom so that her head had a little bit more base to rest on.
Dennis?
Oh, I was 78 and right in there with the rest of them. And echoing and continuing what Tony said on the eyes, we want to really watch that the light doesn't break through the iris into the eyes. And so we want to watch all that becomes part of the technical part of the photography. When we start looking at that. And then we start looking at the tonalities of the upper to right, left, upper corners, how the upper right so much brighter than the left. And so you can even allow those corners out so you don't have the judge's eyes flickering out of the shot.
Wonderful. And I will just add here that sometimes there'll be questions in the chat, and if it's okay, I might also throw out a question or two that might be helpful for people. And so one question that I'm going to just say is I have a question as to the drop shadow or the interior shadowing around the matting. Do you feel that that adds to it, or is that heavier than you would recommend? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think after looking at this, it can be lightened a little more because it could be a little heavy on the inside shadow. I think a little lighter might work better for this image.
Especially at the top part, right at the top of her head where the shadow comes into her head, makes that funky dark look right top of her crease of her head.
Great. One more question here. Can you say more about the light in the iris? What do you mean? What do you mean the catch light?
Well, if you look at the catch light, it's coming out of the black part of the eye, it's breaking around the ring, and it's coming out into around the ring of the eye, and that should not be breaking into that. Technically, it should not be breaking out of the black part of the eye into that circle, the iris, into the ring around the eye.
Referring to the left eye, camera left.
Yes, and the right eye, well, on our camera right, is almost the edge. So,
Okay.
those things are just technical things that the judge look for in lighting.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All
Okay,
right,
Phil.
next image. Solitude.
We're looking at the rocks on the lake, right?
Yes.
Okay, but we don't have titles, so that's the problem, is we don't have titles on it. I just want to make sure that we have the right
Yes.
image.
Yes.
'77.
Okay, Dennis, you want to start with this one?
Sure, I give it a 76. That put that in the above average category. So as I look at it, we got a really strong focal point at the very beginning, and the title is Solitude. And we got a really strong human element type in the foreground that dominates the whole image, which it's basically sharp. But I feel like the time of day to capture this image was not paramount. And then the matting, even though the matting is used to control the eye to keep it within the image, I don't feel it's the color or style we need to work this image to keep us in there.
Okay, Dwight.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, I was on the high side of above average at 78. Just to add to Dennis's comments, I wish this was a little more sharper, attack sharp. I am looking in the distant mountains, and I kind of missing a little more detail. I'd like to see that. And somehow I'm just thinking the rocks that are stacked on the left, if you reposition the camera, I think you might have gotten a more interesting composition without the rocks on the stacked rocks on the left.
And I was at 77 in the above average category as well. Very beautiful scene here. So you've got great subject matter to start with, but then I start looking at things, and lighting is so paramount in image competition. And Dennis kind of alluded to that with time of day. We've got some shadows there that have basically almost no detail in them in the technical excellence area. So for me, it was really the lighting that was holding me back the most. But again, just really gorgeous scene. And I do appreciate that, it has a little bit more storytelling with the rocks all piled up.
I'd just like to add that I think the stroke, that outer stroke or bevel, the color, I think it may be working against the composition, especially when you go up toward the blue sky on a top margin. I would think to maybe pick a more neutral type of stroke line.
All right, wonderful.
All right. Next image. Into the light. $76.
Okay, Tony, do you want to start this one out?
Sure. I was at 77 in the above average category on this one. And again, we've got some great subject matter here with this deer. I like the choice of going black and white to give it a little bit different look than maybe what we sometimes see. For me, what was holding me back really was I felt like the shot was just missed as into timing because the deer is just about to walk into that light. And I think it would have been stronger had they waited just until that deer did walk into the light a little bit. For me, I am seeing detail throughout, but just barely in some of the shadows. And I think just the timing was just missed on this.
Hey, Dennis?
I agree with Tony on everything there. I feel like the foreground was blown out and the back. There's so much, I guess it's a contrast range from the low contrast in the background, which is like 3/4 image, and a little bit of the highlight, which is blown out. And then so it leads us to having hardly any detail on deer.
Yes, I gave this a score of, I actually forgot, I think it was a 76, and just enjoying this image here to capture. Just to add on what the other judges said is what I'm just looking at the presentation, that stroke line. As we look at the bottom right corner, just be careful about some of the artwork. It seems like there is some of the grass blending into the accent line going around. Little things like that can be penalized against you in a final score.
Okay, we do have a question in the chat. What does the uneven matting detract from the image? Or does the uneven matting detract from the image? Like, I think she's referring to the width between the top and bottom and left and right.
I personally feel like it does. I do feel like images are stronger when the matting is even all the way around for the most part, unless when it's just this much difference, it feels like a mistake. When it's an obvious difference, like several inches to put something more on a third or something, that is one thing, but this just feels kind of like a mistake in the fact that it's not even.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we had.
All right, next image. A forest of tulips. $76.
Okay, maybe Dwight, you want to start this one?
Yes, I gave this a score of 77. I think we got some good potential start with this image here. I think the choice of lens, I think is working in your best favor, longer lens, shallow depth of field. But by saying that, I wish the largest tulip, which is a little on the third of our left, the white one, boy, get that in focus. I think that is important to get that image in focus. And I guess some of the other tulips within the area to get some sharpness so we can focus upon that and bring down just a little bit of the density in the white so there's some detail within the flowers.
Dennis? Or Tony, maybe?
Sure, I was at 75 on this image in the above average category. And, great subject matter. Tulips are one of my favorite flowers. So I'm enjoying the subject matter. For me, a couple things holding me back. One is center of interest. I can go right to that white flower in the front that's on the third, but then my eye is drawn over to the top right. There's kind of a grayish sort of thing up there, and I can't tell if that's a person back there. Maybe kind of looks like it now because I'm kind of seeing maybe in an arm and a shirt or what that was, but my eye keeps drawing up there and pulling me out of the prettiness of the flowers.
Okay, Dennis, did you have something to add?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I don't know what happened. I'm just echoing everything they said, and I was a 76 and just echo everything that they all said. But to echo the one other thing there is I don't think the black mat and like addressed is the appropriate mat for this, because with the darkness of the mat, it actually lends judges something to compare the shadows and light to. And I would have maybe liked to have seen a lighter colored mat, even one of the take the color from the tulips or another lighter color, because I don't think the black mat is going to be conducive to carrying this image forward.
I have another thought and question. What about the light traps that I'm seeing too, that draw your eye away from that focal point? That's another thing that I was thinking about.
The light trap at the very top third on the left hand side.
Yeah, and above the red tulip there in the middle. And
well, I think the one in the middle is a flower in the foreground out of focus, and the light traps, and those are all things that just when cropping and camera could have adjusted that. But you get to a point where you start cropping too much out, you're going to lose the image. So you have to decide if it is worth cropping out or is it worth losing part of the image, and that's going to be a determination for the maker.
Right. Sherry also added that the stubs of the stems at the bottom can probably be a little distraction too, and not. So
Yes, little things like that. We touch it out or you tone it down a little, so it wouldn't be a distraction for the judges to be looking at it or critiquing. I mean, you don't want the judges to be looking at things like that.
Great. Thank you.
All right, next image. B-ball. '81.
Who'd like to start this one?
I can take this one. I give this an 84, a deserving of merit and a high-end deserving merit. Has nice impact, has nice graphics, a lot of things going for it. But I'm just going to address this. We don't know as judges whether the background has been purchased or if it's when you shot, because in photographic open, if you've used a background or something that's not yours that you've had to purchase, you need to show a thumbnail of it, because that could lead to disqualification at IPC if they find that. But that was just a tidbit. But as I look at it, I'm looking at some things here, and I give it a merit because I thought graphics, designs, the colors. But the third boy on the left looks oddly larger than some of the others, especially compared to the little dude on the far left with the bat. So just watch the size proportions, and the guy on the far left, the black guy, fourth one in from the right, he looks a little larger than some of theirs. So just watch size proportion. But with all that, I still thought it was a merit.
Hey, Dwight?
Sorry, I scored this an 80. I could be probably on the lower side. Great composition. I'm just looking at this, that I really don't need to see a guide print of each individual player. I think the maker did a good job on this, but what I would like to see more is more accurate shadows between each person. Like if you're in the first row, you should be casting a shadow or more prominent shadow on the guys on a second row. Those are some of the things that I saw to give it more dimension. And I think it would really show the maker knew how to use lights, positioning, scale. Yes, I got to follow up on what Hammond said about the scale of some of the players. They look a little large. Also, too, the coaches in the back, I think separate them a little more. These guys are big guys and they look uncomfortable, really snugged up into each other. So those were some of the things that I thought were a little that could be adjusted.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I landed at 80 in the merit category on this one. I do really like the graphics and, you know, nice team shot here for the players. Some things already mentioned. And when Dennis was talking about, you know, the size of the players, the thing you should look at is the head size. Because I know people are taller than others and that kind of thing, but their heads usually are not that much different. And so when you're putting one of these together, kind of look at those head size and see how they compare. And since it looks, you know, like it was put together in some manner, the guy in the back with the bat up, third one over in the back row or right next to the coaches, since you can put him anywhere, then he needs to come up a little taller, just so that he is not kind of hidden behind the other players a little bit. So if his head was kind of equal to the guy on the other side, that would, you know, just bring him up a little bit better so he's visible. And then some of the light on the faces appears to be just a little bit too bright, especially compared to the scene that they're in. And so I would tone that down a little bit on some of those highlights. On some of the players. Now, it's not even throughout, and that's another thing to look at. These composites have a ton of things that you have to look at when it comes to print competition.
Well, you know, the maker did a really good job in consistency. I think the consistency of light on each player, it works out well. So it looks like they were actually in this group shot. So that I thought the maker should be rewarded on that point.
We had one question in the chat. Would a lower tone on the logo work better? Anybody?
Possibly. I mean, it depends. Like that is probably more what they like as far as the customer goes. But when I'm looking at the shirts and stuff, they're not that neon. And so a little bit lower tone would make it all fit together just a little bit better.
All right, thank you.
All right, next image. Hurry up and wait. $78.
All right, Dennis, do you want to start this one?
I can. I scored an 80 on this, and I thought it was interesting capture. I scored an 80 for the graphics and the idea and the thought process, because one of the first things we look at as a judge is impact, and it did impact me. And then the creativity part of it was the next part. But then I have to look at the technical part, is why I didn't go higher. And as I look at it, the time exposure is very cool. But when I see these time exposures, I would like to see more of the people or less the people. And I'm seeing, you know, just one leg hanging out here and there, no legs there, or just a body there, here and there. So I understand they're all walking at different speeds, but no, this is maker's decision how they produce this. And then I would like to see maybe a more even presentation with a stroke line to determine the area of presentation.
Yes. You know, I gave this a 77, and well, same reasons Dennis kind of brought up. I would like to see a little more sharpness in this image here. I see places that I'd like to see possibly more sharpness, detail reading off that board, the information board. It may not be possible, but I'd like to see some sharpness within the presentation.
Yeah, I ended up at a 79 in the above average category. And initially it did have great impact for me and I wanted to go higher. I thought the storytelling was really well done on this image. But for me, it wasn't that technical excellence category that held me back in the sharpness. I understand that the people are moving, and so they didn't necessarily have to be sharp to me, but I did think that the words on the board could be sharp. And then I wonder about the face that's up there on the like ad or whatever is on the left-hand side. That to me is a point of distraction that maybe could be dealt with.
I just have a question with the other judges. Do you think this would be, first question, would be like great in a reportage type of category? And next is the presentation. I'm looking at it at the left margin and left margin and the right margin, comparing the width. Does it seem like it's a little off center, more to the left? I'm just being a little picky. I just want to see if the judges see what I'm seeing.
Well, I thought I addressed that. I thought maybe the margins
Okay.
need to be more equal and with the stroke line around to define. And I agree with you that the category may not be illustrative or more the reportage. But reportage, you can only do dodging and burning and cropping, but you can't do any of the Photoshop stuff to it. So that's something that they need to be aware of.
And yes, I agree on both points.
Okay, yeah, we don't have any questions in the chat. Thank you.
All right, next image. Finally, a bride. $77.
Tony, do you want to start?
Sure. I was at 78 in the above average category on this one. And beautiful subject here, touching story, pretty light on her face coming from likely a window or something. A couple things holding me back. First of all, I think, I don't know if it's a natural vignette or if it's, a vignette that's created, but the vignette feels a little bit dark to me. It's kind of turning the bottom of her dress into some different colors. I'm seeing kind of some cyan and blue in the shadows down there. And then I think the presentation is just very distracting, and I think it needs to be even all the way around and just simpler. It just really draws my eye out of the image.
Dwight?
Oh, sorry. I give this a 77. And yes, just to repeat what Tony kind of mentioned, I'd just like to add that the yellow stroke line is just so strong. I would kind of bring that down. Well, we have a bride here. I would like to have seen her rotated more clockwise. So what we can do is kind of trim her down and darken that arm that is closest to the camera. I think that'd be really helpful. And, possibly not really knowing the situation, we could relocate the bouquet. That could help bring down some of her shape, make her more shapely on the bride. And I would add some, do a little more retouching around her neck, so we have a really nice smooth neckline instead of having those horizontal wrinkles on her. We want to really help the bride out as much as possible.
Dennis?
Well, echoing what Dwight and Tony said, I was a 77. In addition, what they said, that horizontal line back by her left double of the background, it's camera angle, and then the flowers that are so close to the border touching in and going out of the photo. But my concern is my thought is, I think lens choice may be an issue here, is that a longer lens and a longer distance would have compressed things down, and add that to a little bit more selective posing would have enhanced this image a lot.
Okay. We do not have any questions in the chat.
Okay, next image. Vintage Beauty. $77.
Okay, Dwight, you want to start it out?
Yes, I enjoyed this image at an 80. 80 points. And I think there are a lot of things that could help this more to make it a more solid merit. You know, I'm a little on the generous side. You know, we have some nice sharp eyes, detail is great there. But then as we fall, well, if we look at the entire image, the feeling of focus falls off in different places, and it seems a little awkward. That certain areas, like her necklace, is sharp, then it just go a little further back, and it gets thrown out of focus. Her hand closest on the right side is a little on the bright side, and I think little details like that can be toned down.
Tony, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I ended up at 77 on this one. And again, beautiful subject matter. She's got some gorgeous eyes. I do like the cropping, the placement of the subject kind of over on that third to give her a little bit more of a power feeling. But most of it's been addressed. For me, it was the focus going in and out and just kind of losing the detail between her arm and the back part of her shirt there a little bit in the shadows. And the feeling of the way she's holding her hat just didn't have a natural feel to me.
Dennis?
Yes, I was a 76, and I echo all the same sentiments that the judges had, but I'm just going to bring out a couple more issues here. Is, you know, I look at her hand on our camera right, that the knuckles, because it's all out of focus, and the exposure issue on that, but you look at the tops of the fingers, they're all been burnt in or darkened down, or something's going on there. And then you just continue up that left corner, you got those little light traps with the background. And so when we're shooting, we need to just be cognizant of the angles we're shooting and what's on those edges of those frames image. And then finally some posing challenge. She's coming out of the angle and we're losing some detail in the blacks, but no, we're basically kind of shooting up her nose. So we need to be really careful of the angle that we're shooting and the composition of such.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next image. Fluid motion. $80.
Who would like to start this one?
I should. This is Dwight. Yeah, I should do this one. You know, I gave this an 85. I really enjoyed what's going on, and look at how I'm looking at how difficult this was put together, all the different components or different elements to get this image going. You know, I think the title really helped out. My eyes are flowing in and out. Then I look at the little girls, and I think they're positioned well. I'm looking at the reflection on the floors. You know, at points, I believe they're on a really nice high polished floor. I really don't get the feel. Well, some girls, I do have a little feel that it may be floating. That could be easily adjusted. But I think was the maker did plan this out very well.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I ended up at 79 in the above average category. And initial impact, I did want to go higher. There's a lot of things to really love about this image. I like the design in the background, the material, the way it curves in and out and brings you to their story. I really love the placement of each girl. Each girl has her own space in the image and is designed quite well. But what really held me back was that feeling of floatiness. So we have the nice little reflection underneath them, but they should also have a shadow underneath them to connect those feet to the ground. And I'm just not finding that in most of the images. And so that's what really held me back, because there's a lot of other things to love about it.
Okay, Dennis?
Well, you know, I was a 78. I so wanted to love this image. I'm just seeing some things here that are concerning me. And the judges have already talked about the shadow, the disconnect to the shadow of the feet. I feel like there's some challenges there. And then the girls on the outside edges with their hands almost touching the border just takes you out. But some of the posing is really challenging for me when we got 3-4 girls and right in the front row, their legs right up or shooting right in their crotch. And without being obscene, it just maybe a different pose or a different angle that would have been more conducive to that area. And then you look at the back, there's a leg going through a head that could have been fixed out, that we could have adjusted there. And so in addition to the shadows and effects, I think some of the posing could have been refined a little better. And the double stroke line for me is almost too much, but we got this nice swirly flow of the fabric and all the stuff going through there. And then the swirl is broken up by a double square line for composition. So compositionally, it's just not carrying forth with all the differences of line swirls and then the vertical lines of the people and then the double red line.
Yes, yeah. Could I add to this?
Please do.
Yeah, the two judges they got out really good points. Like Tony mentioned that each girl had her space, and I thought that was really good for the maker to just listen to that. That there is each girl has their own space, but Dennis kind of mentioned that the girl on the far right and left, they're just so close to the edge that maybe that's you have to allow a little more space there. And also too, with the arrangement of their outfits, good points, what Dennis brought out. So the maker, I would just kind of suggest use your software technique to cover up some of the privates of the girls. Then I think this will be much more of a solid, nice, solid score.
Okay, I don't think we have any other questions.
All right, next image. Not all who wander are not lost. '81.
Okay, Tony, you want to start this one?
Sure. I landed at 80 on this one in the merit category. There's a lot to like about this. Beautiful subject matter here, nice composition for her place in the image. Just some really nice, softness in the background. I appreciate all that. What really held me back on this was if you look at her hair is nice and painted and soft looking. And then right next to it, actually in front of it is the fur that she's wearing. And that is so sharp and not as softened as the rest, like her hair. And so it was that inconsistency that held me back.
Okay, Dwight.
Yes, I plugged in an 84. I really enjoyed this image. What really got me is the quality of light going across the subject, the young girl. And of course, I see the sun coming from the backside. So it gets maybe a little confusing, but then I think the maker did a really nice job. But, I think to address the hair flowing, I kind of looked at it as if there was a little breeze and that's just made her hair a little more misty or feather-like as compared to the fur that she's wearing. And I'm seeing things that could be improved on, like maybe some of the artwork down by her foot. Just be a little careful. I see some halo lines going around her feet, and that may be a little problem in an actual competition.
And Dennis?
I scored an 80 on this image and I enjoyed the image, but once I get past the storyline and the storytelling of the image, I look at some things that it feels like the little girl is too big. If this is being an environmental portrait and she's almost bigger than the environment coming in there. But one of the challenges is brought to me is the maker chose to put the sun in the image, yet we're having a shadow coming on the left hand side, but we're having a shadow as the light's coming directed from the right hand side, leaving a shadow on the foreground. So I know those are a couple of challenges. And then the horizon is almost dead center in the image, and so a selective cropping or selective angle would have helped us a little bit more and maybe make a little bit more. And then in addition, if you could take from her face and chest, I know it's illusion and it could be the environment, but I'm seeing these swirly lines that are coming right out of her face and chest in the background of sky. And it could be the sky, it could be some clouds, but now it becomes, as I can't get away from those little lines and looks as I keep seeing those in the sky in the background.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
next image. Cool Serenity.
Is this the water shot?
Yes.
Okay, just double check it. Thank you.
$77.
Okay, Dennis, do you want to start this one?
Sure can. I scored this a 76, and I congratulate the maker on capturing a little snippet of this water, the water rapids and the falls there. But you know, we almost got things crowded a little bit more because we got this wave coming from the left-hand side, and the wave is leaning up to the left. It's almost going out of the picture. We got some wave coming out of the right. So I would like to see a little bit more of the wave. We get when we do water like this, I mean, we get different water travels at different speeds, and we have to sometimes take which one we want to concentrate on the most. And I know we have the black rocks and things in there, but I feel like it's cropped too tight in the image, being cropped in a square. And I'm not feeling the black mat is conducive to carrying the feel and the emotion of this image, because now it looks oppressive with a black mat, whereas I think a lighter color, even a high key or white mat, would be more artsy like that. And just striking this out there, what if you change this into black and white, made it a cool black and white graphics? Just saying.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I scored this one as 78 in the above average category. For me, it did have some nice impact when it turned around. There's some storytelling going on. I do want to say that I don't think the title fits with this image, and so they may want to consider that, because the story here for me looks more like movement and power and not serenity. So they might want to take a look at that. Another thing that held me back was the lack of detail in the whites, kind of in the center there above the rock as it comes over that rock. Just created a very flat place there with that lack of detail. Otherwise, I did find it interesting and a little bit creative to do something a little bit different.
Yes, I scored this an 82. Probably I was just a little overwhelmed with a nice flow. Tony made a good point about the title. I would also agree with her about the title, maybe changing it a little, because I see a lot of power. Maybe that's where I got overwhelmed with my score. And as I looked much closer and I spent more time on this, as I look at the white water on the top left side, I see some kind of a technique applied to it, some kind of texture, where I think right now it may be more of a disadvantage to have that. And, as Dennis said about some different type of cropping might have helped. So I may have been a little high on my score at 82.
Thank you. I don't see any questions.
Okay, next image. Field of Wonder. $77.
Okay, Dwight, do you want to start this one?
Yes, I really enjoyed this image. I plugged in a 76 on here on this score. I mean, on this image here. We have a really, really nice subject. It is great detail in the eyes, and that's what we want to look at. But what's happening is in the foreground, those flowers, I wish it wasn't there to be blocking some of her body. I think repositioning of the camera, or maybe just pruning a little bit of those flowers in the foreground, I think we would have gotten a really nice portrait. I think the other judges will talk about some of the lighting.
Tony?
Yeah, I ended up at 78 in the above average category on this one. And again, as mentioned, beautiful subject matter here. This presentation actually does work for me this time. So I think that was a plus. Couple things that are bothering me a little bit is the pose of the girl. I don't think is as flattering as it could be. And then those flowers in the foreground, I don't mind them so much at the bottom where they kind of form a natural vignette, but the ones that are breaking into our subject, especially into her hair and her arms, do create, a pull away from that beautiful face that I want to keep staying in.
Okay, Dennis?
76, and echoing exactly what they all said. In addition to that, the upper left-hand side, the sun's coming through, or the flare is bothersome. It is a little backlit, but that becomes a challenge to me when my eye goes up, leaves those bright spots and flowers, and goes that bright spot and goes right out. And so that's where I land, was above average.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Next image. To hang out. $79.
Okay, who'd like to start this one?
I'll take it. This I scored it a 77, and I thought this was an interesting capture of this gentleman with his motorcycle here, putting the air vent in there. But this is one of the cases where I feel like maybe the was too much information given to us in the image, and I was kind of confused by the lighting, because I'm seeing lighting coming across the bricks to our camera right along the wall, and I'm seeing the light coming in from the window, but it's just, the light's confusing. And then I look in the bright speculars of the motorcycle right near the carburetor area there, and I'm seeing the light, the flash. I see a light from a flash or another reflection going in there that could have been taken out. There again, I think the matting is maybe just on the edge of being what it should be, but I'll let the other judges talk about that as well.
Dwight?
Sure. Oh, yeah, sure. I'll jump in. Yeah, I plugged this in at an 81, just getting into the merit category. And, just to echo what Dennis said about the light coming from the left side, that I saw that, and I didn't think it was too bad, but, as I'm just looking at this longer, and I really like the detail and the sharpness within the bike, and the owner in the background. I thought it was an interesting story. But then I was just thinking, what if I were to crop it in a little tighter, and then get more detail on the bike? I didn't need to see the misting, or the misting coming out of the ground on the bottom right side. I didn't really need to see that, but I think the stroke itself is working in theme of the Harley colors. So I think I should have been not too overwhelmed. It should have been cropped a little tighter.
And Tony?
And I ended up at 78 in the above average category on this one. I do really appreciate the storytelling that's going on here. We have some nice leading lines kind of leading into that motorcycle and then back to our subject back behind. So there's some nice positives in addition to the ones that have already been mentioned. But for me, a little bit, the vignette on the bottom feels a little bit too dark, and that mist that's coming out is a distraction from the center of interest, kind of. Dwight mentioned that. And then I look at the face of the fellow behind, and I just feel like that guy behind might just be a little overlit. I'm seeing, some pretty bright highlights there, and I'm guessing that jacket is more of a black and it's coming across as gray. So to me, it might just be a little overlit back there.
Okay. Yeah, those are great. Do you guys want to go ahead and take a 3 or 5 minute break? We're right at 11 o'clock.
Sure.
Okay, we'll see everybody back then at how about 11:05? Our mountain time.
Not a long break for you, Dwight. Dennis is back.
Tony's back.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, I was trying to say that my neighbors, I realize, are going to start having their yard being cut, and I'll try to mute as much as possible. Oh no, what a nightmare.
So we have all the judges back. We're probably ready to
Yes.
go then. That's Phil's got not back.
I'm back.
Hey, we're all ready to go? There were some questions in the chat about how far we've come and how long before we get to the end when we can ask some other questions. And I saw Sherry put in the chat, if you didn't see, we're at image 13 of 43. So we probably could move along just a tiny faster, I guess. But I'm guessing maybe then if that's the case, well, that's close to half. We'll probably be a little past noon then, if that's the rate we're going, for those who are curious. And I do have a few questions that have come in for later, some images that were already judged. So there's a couple I'll save for the end. But we could probably continue at any time.
All righty. Next image. Triple threat. $76.
Dennis?
Sure. 76 on this. Lucky person who found this and got these guys out there playing and rutting and going for it. So good for them. So we get past the impact. We got to start talking about some technical things here. And I wish that there was more of the elk on both sides and show more of the landscape. I understand they're trying to show the antlers inlocked and the little sparring going on, but I'd like to see more of that. Time of day is one of those things that we're just lucky to find these, and it's a challenge there. I know they're shooting the long lens, is why the foreground's out of focus there. But boy, I tell you, one of the biggest challenges I'm seeing with this is that triple line. We don't need to really have all those lines and mats around there, and that's where I'm going to hang.
Hey, Dwight?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I also scored this as 76 too. Just to add, what a great capture. I mean, you had to be right there to get this. I just like to have seen a little more detail within the fur and, all the points. I like to see more sharpness, and just be careful about some artwork. I see on the top left of the antlers, I see looks like some possible artwork around one of them.
Yeah, I was at 77 in the above average category. And again, great timing to be there at the right time to find this and see this. I will echo all the comments that have already been made, especially about that mat, which I find very distracting. And yeah, I mean, everything has really been said.
Okay. And I don't see any other questions as of now.
All right. Next image. Hold on here. 10 little piggies. 77.
Let's see, Dwight, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, sure. You know, I gave this a 77. What a adorable little child. Nice big round eyes. I think the lighting is really nice around the child himself. But what kind of held me back is just be careful about some of the artwork around the edge of, as we look at it on, well, on both shoulders. It gets a little sharp. You got great detail within the face, but as we come around to the body, it gets a little soft in the edge. I'm not sure if this just because of the light coming from the background, but I think it can be corrected. And you know, you got some good detail in the storytelling with the toes as I look at the little child here.
And Tony?
Yeah, I was at 78 in the above average category, and this is a cutie pie, like such an adorable child. And I do love the storytelling of those toes and the hands and all of that. But then when I'm looking at, you know, the elements for competition, there's some things that could be improved. And one is just pulling up the clothing. You know, sometimes you have to kind of pin it back a little bit so that it stays up and doesn't kind of fall down and kind of create a little bit of a distraction there. And then to me, I know babies have really soft skin, but it appears a little bit like over retouching, or that skin is just so soft. And maybe that's real, and I could be wrong, but it just appears a little bit too soft to me. But love the light in the eyes and just a cute subject.
Dennis?
I was 77 as well. And, you know, a couple of my concerns were, you know, I agree, a cute baby, beautiful expression. But my main concern was, you know, the lighting differences from, you look at all the different appendages, the arms and the legs on the left-hand side. I know they're on the light away from the camera, but they are considerably darker and a different tonal range than the camera left side. And then we got that hard, background line coming into the back of the baby, and I think direction, maybe an angle would have fixed that a little better. Beautiful little shot, but just a couple of things that just held me back.
Can I just add, I'm asking the other judges, I'm looking at what Dennis just mentioned. It seems the horizon, the flooring may not be as level as it should be. I'm getting that illusion, and I thought probably cropping a little more off the top margin may help. I'm just wondering if you see that horizon.
Yeah, it looks like it's drifting down to the right.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I have a question on the fur that's in front camera right. It in my screen looks kind of flat or something. Is that something you would speak to, or is that not? Might be me.
I don't think it's flat. It looked like it's been retouched or something because it doesn't have the same texture as the fur on the camera left. If you look at underneath the camera left side versus camera right, the texture and the colorization is substantially different than the rest of the fur that they're sitting on. So when they start working on these kind of images, they need to keep the continuity in the tones and colors and textures.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next image. The world awaits.
The girl with the black hat?
Yes.
Yes.
Or green hat? Okay, thank you.
Bill, do you see the score?
Oh, 77.
Okay, let's see. Dwight, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, sure. You know, I scored this a 76. What a really nice, looks like a senior portrait. Great things happening. What just kind of overwhelmed me is just the background just seems so bright that it's pulling my eyes away from looking at her eyes. I like to see a little more sharpness within the subject herself. I'm seeing some detail in the fabric, but I like to see more detail within the eyes. And just that inner shadow, the drop shadow, is a little soft, so it forces me to believe that there is some out of focus issues, which is not, but that presentation I think can be worked on.
Dennis?
I scored a 78. Beautiful subject here, but it does have the impact. There's a little bit of storytelling going on with the hat, and I agree with they've used the hand to effectively kind of crop the face. But as I look at the face, I'm having an issue with these. The eyes are crossing over the bridge of the nose, and that's kind of a standard posing no. I mean, she could have brought her right shoulder back a little bit more, and brought the eyes around so the eyes weren't breaking across the bridge of the nose. And then in the upper left-hand side, I'm seeing some vertical lines. It's just with some speculars inside there. And then there's some lines, diagonal lines on the right-hand side. I feel there's almost too much image in here, unless they're going to use this for like a grad analysis, put writing on there, which we don't have that information, but there's just too much information here. And then we got too many speculars in here that are detracting from her.
We did have a question in the chat. Would
Tony
cropping-
hasn't talked yet, just saying.
Oh, my apologies. I'm sorry, Tony. Please go ahead.
I'm so forgettable.
No, I
It's
guess I
okay.
needed a longer break.
It's okay. I was at 77 in the above average category on this one, and beautiful subject matter, as everyone has stated, that we have going on here. Couple things that I agree with all the comments so far. A couple other things that I would mention is her white nail polish. That is kind of the brightest point on her. And so instead of being able to stay in her face and her eyes, I keep drawing my eyes out to those white fingernails right next to the black. So it's a point of contrast. And so I would definitely tone those down. And also that right-hand side where it's so light up there just keeps pulling my eye out of the image. So I'm really struggling with center of interest on this. And then in the technical part, the posing, we're shooting right into her shoulder, making her shoulder look bigger than it is. And so just a slight turn of her body so we aren't, or slight angle of the camera, either one, so that we're not shooting straight into the shoulder, I think would have been helpful.
Great feedback. The one question we had, I just got excited to see a chat question. Would cropping off a little off the left side help as far as less background?
For me,
Go ahead, Tony.
for me, cropping off both sides would help, making it more of a square, because that background is pretty distracting.
And she's almost centered in the rectangle, actually. And I agree that the cropping would have been more in there. And I understand the background may have some significance to her, but bringing attention to her more would be more paramount. By the way, nice job on the cropping, on the matting as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next image. How you doon? $79.
Okay, Tony, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, I was 81 on this one, just inside the merit category. It did have a lot of impact for me when it came around. I thought the composition was handled nicely. Seeing detail in most of the sand, and that's kind of where I landed.
Okay. Dennis?
I was a 78. Interesting capture, textures and tones there. And the challenges I had, is the highlights pulling out on this left-hand side. Of course, we know the shadow where the light's coming from. And then that almost looked like a polarized light that made the polarizer wasn't working because up the upper right-hand side. So let me just propose this to the maker, and if they use some more judicious cropping on this image, and I understand the background's kind of cool and everything, but if you went from the mountains in the background and then draw a line straight across, if you just held your hand up and drew that straight down so that there's no other background, so all we have is the slope of the dune, and come in and add more texture and tone, And what if you change this to a black and white? So this would be a square black and white, which is the dune coming out of the lower left. I think you might have a stronger image than we almost got too much stuff here to look at.
Yes, you know, I gave this a 78, and just, I mean, just agreeing with all the other judges, what they've mentioned. I'd just like to add that I see, okay, I see some possible chromatic aberration. Look between the light dune and the shadow of the dune. I see some color shift, like a little magenta, as if in chromatic aberration. And as I look on some other edges on the left side, in the distance, I do see some like that magenta color coming out on the edge. Those are some of the things that I thought can be corrected very easily. And I think the maker got a good potential image here, just with some slight adjustments.
Okay, thank you. Bill, are
Okay,
we-
next image. Call me Scarlett. $78.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I gave this a 78 in the above average category, and you know, beautiful subject, some nice storytelling with their costuming going on. I like the choice of the gray background behind her. Some things that held me back. First one was lighting. The lighting on her face, it appears to be pretty flat, and then the light on her hand almost appears to be a spotlight on that hand. That hand is very bright, compared to you know, everything else going like down the side of her hair and stuff. I'm not seeing that same lighting up on her hair, but I'm seeing it definitely on the hand and the lower part of the dress. So not quite sure where that lighting is coming from, because the main light is obviously on the other side.
Hey, Dwight?
Oh, okay. Yes. I gave this a 78 score. And just to add what Tony kind of mentioned is just a presentation, that stroke line. Boy, tone it down. Right now I'm looking at her, which is a great portrait that we have here, but then that accent line is just so powerful. It pulls my eyes away from looking at her face. And those are just a few things I just want to add.
Dennis?
And I was a 78, and agreeing with all the things they said. In addition to that, if you look on her right arm, there's a light trap running through her right arm that could certainly be toned down, and as well as there's a light spot on her cheek that could be toned down as well. And then Tony brought up the back of the hand. It's just a matter of fine-tuning the lighting and work in that direction, so it brings attention to her beautiful face.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next image. Sugar and spice.
The girl in the boots.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
$79.
Okay, how about Dennis start this one?
80. I mean, a beautiful little portrait of this young lady. But I put it in the merit category for, you know, the impact of the image. But, you know, as I'm looking at, I don't know if I could go any higher on it, because I'm looking at some challenges with the edge lighting is cutting her cheek a little hard. She's got some hard on both forehead and her cheek. And then that big spot on her forehead that could have been softened down. I mean, and then the light on her leg. I put it in the merit category because I like the tone, the design, and the beauty of the subject.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I ended up at 79 in the above average category, and this did have a lot of impact for me when it came around. It has a lot of positives going for it, some great color harmony. I like her pose showing some power and some movement in that pose. It's not static. I like that about it. And just a beautiful subject to start with. But a couple things holding me back just from reaching that merit category. One is there's a couple of white spots, or actually I'm seeing now 4 or 5 white spots on the floor that are just little distractions away from that gorgeous subject. And then in the background, lower left part of the background, we've got some lines or wrinkles or something going on there that again are just a distraction from the center of interest, but a lot of nice things going for it. I really did want to be in the merit category.
Yes, I gave this a 79 and I really want to get there. I think Dennis kind of said the whole gave all the great positives to make this into a merit. And what kind of held me back was just that hard light upon her cheek as we look on the left side. I thought that was a little too bright. As to address some of the spots that I did see on the floor also too. But if you look closely, I see 203 that are like the wood has been the distress of the wood where it's been nailed down. So it is there, but there are other spots that looks like it's a dust mark. So I would say, hey, watch out for those little things that could be a distraction. And I would take it out, all those little spots that, like Tony mentioned, to make it a more powerful image. And I got to say, I thought the presentation of this mat, I think worked out well with this composition.
Okay, question, could we tone down the lighting in Photoshop, the light on her cheeks?
Sure. Use whatever tools that you're comfortable with and proficient with, and make sure it looks believable. If it's good retouching is unseen retouching.
Well said. Okay, next.
All right. I am. $75.
Hey, Dwight, you want to start this one?
Yeah, sure. I put this in a 76, and I see a great attempt from the maker here. The control of the light is nice, but I think it may be a little washed out. I like to see a little more detail. I'm thinking the maker intended to make this more of a high key type of presentation, but then when we look at the pose, it gets a little dangerous is when we look into an open armpit area, especially on a female. That's a little dangerous area. I would maybe probably change the pose on this, or else maybe the outfit, then we wouldn't have to be looking into that area, which is much brighter than her face. I'm quite sure the other judges will fill in a little more, but I think this has it's a good start, but it's not really finished.
Tony?
Yeah, I was at 75 on this one. And she does have some beautiful eyes. I like the placement of the subject in the frame for composition. The armpit has been mentioned, you just kind of don't want to shoot into that area, but then also we have a high key background and then we have low key clothing. And so that is something that maybe doesn't go quite as well also. And then just the overall brightness, I'm just about losing the detail in those front fingers. So just some challenges, but again, a beautiful subject.
Dennis?
75. In addition to what the other judges have said, I appreciate the work on this and the lighting, but I feel like the pose maybe could have been refined a little bit more and not shooting up into the nostrils. We could have brought her chin down a little bit more and then loosen the light there. And boy, I hope she's not an amputee, because I'd sure like to see her other arm out there and wrap around her arm or do something on her hair, do something, because I would like to see the other appendage as well. And I know this is just just minuscule little details, but on the dress on her right, on our camera right, all the way down, those bumps and lumps could have been taken out and fixed, easily been taken down to slim it down, and so we don't have those lumps and bumps there. And I feel like there's almost too much snaggy space on the right side. And as far as the matting, they tried to do a high key mat, but that teal color just doesn't go with the matting, because there's nothing in there I can see that's really teal that blends there. So just watch your stroke, watch your lines. Remember that that stroke line, that matting is the only way you can converse the judge and keep their eyes within the image.
You know, Dennis, I think not she, but the maker maybe pulled that teal color from the ring itself, the stone. That's the only thing that I see is close in that teal value. But then, like, you're right, you're correct about that. Use a different type of stroke line.
Well, the teal doesn't go with the matte tone. I mean, it's a different color of tonalities, and so the teal stroke does not go with that beige matting.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, next image. Abandoned.
Girl, the swing.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to verify so we're just going the right one.
$77.
Okay, who would like to start this one?
I'll take it. I scored a 75. Beautiful subject. The abandoned thing that she's alone, but you know, I just see her compressed into the image with all these grasses and this tree. And I think the lighting is a little flat, but the couple of concerns I have is, you know, she's holding on to a chain, but we got her knuckles and her bottom, the backside of her hand right at the camera angle. And then we got, you know, this bold expanse of the sky that is, you know, there. Maybe that's part of the whole story, that, but if it is part of the story, it needs to immerse me more as a viewer why it's there. And then we got the bright spots in the tree that could be toned down, but it's just basically the tonalities of the image of the lighting on it.
Tony?
Yeah, I was at 77 in the above average category on this one. Yeah, some great points made by Dennis. For me, we have a beautiful subject here. There is a story in her eyes, but I'm not really getting a lot of light into those eyes. I'm not seeing much of a catch light. And so that's always something in a portrait that kind of, you know, grabs the judge's attention. The back of the hand's been mentioned, but those bright fingernails really is something that bothers me as well. And so I'm thinking possibly in that situation, if we couldn't tone those down, maybe make it black and white so that they didn't kind of really grab my attention as pulling my eye out of the center of interest. And so just some challenges there a little bit. The clothing, the way it's kind of wrinkled up is a little bit of a challenge as well.
I'll give this a 75. And, you know, just Tony brought out some really good points, but I'm just trying to interpret this image in the storytelling with the title Abandoned. She looks a little too comfortable. I mean, the way she is, not comfortable by not being really abandoned. To address some of the fingernail polish, I'm just thinking a different type of propping. If her hands were soiled or dirty, and then I can see the storytelling from the title working a little more effectively. But you know, like Dennis and Tony brought out some good points.
All right, I don't see any questions, so next image.
All right. Okay, next image. Fashion Queen. $79.
Hey, Dwight, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. I gave this a 78. Really enjoying this composition. What a nice subject we're working on. It's great that you got a lot of detail in the eyes. You know, the way I'm looking at it on her faces looks great. But then as I go lower down onto her outfit, I think we could bring down a little more of that exposure, so it wouldn't be so bright to pull my eyes away from her face. And I'm just kind of questioning if the blue jeans were could have been cropped out, or it's just a distraction to me right now, because I'm just seeing more a stronger composition to be cropped just under her upper elbow.
Tony?
Yeah, I ended up at 79 on this one. Really pretty subject here. Those are some gorgeous eyes. For me, Dwight kind of mentioned the things that bothered me a little bit. That I just wanted a little bit more light in her face and a little bit less light on the outfit, so that my eyes would stay up in that gorgeous face. And then in the posing, the arm that wraps around, by pulling that back just a little bit so I could still tell that there was a hand there, would give it a much more comfortable feeling. Or as Dwight mentioned, you could just crop it out too.
Hey, Dennis?
I was a 79, just on the edge there. I agree, but beautiful subject, and I feel like still, again, we keep harping on this, but it's a little tight in the image. I like to see a little bit more space in the image. And I agree with all the other points. In addition, that one little rivet on the britches down there, we all see it. Sometimes we just look at these things and it just is a little bright to could be toned down. And one of the tricks that I use a lot when I'm working on comp images, I'll turn the image upside down and walk away, come back, and just look at what jumps out at me. So I'm not looking at a photo, but I'm looking at lines, tones, and colors at that point. And you'll be surprised how many times little things like the little rivet down there and other things will jump out at you. In addition, it wasn't brought up. I know it's on the kind of the shallow side, but her hands and fingers have been toned down sufficiently, because I'm seeing the same lighting on her knuckles and the sleeve, and the hands and her hair, that those have been toned down significantly, and they've almost turned gray in the image. So be careful when you're burning things down that they don't go out of contacts and color range.
Okay, great feedback. Next image.
Falling down her rabbit hole. $80.
Hey, Dennis, would you like to start this one?
That's an 80. I thought this was an interesting image, and I'm assuming it might be a senior, but I thought it was interesting with all the sketch pads that were filled up, the sketching there. She's drawing something there. And what I find really interesting is the only title that is Bram Stoker out there, for the vampires. And, I think that's interesting. All the other books are just got the spines or the backs of books, and it's the only image with the thing. So I'm assuming that the titles have to go along with something that with all the images there. My downfall when I scored an 80 to go any higher was all the wrinkles. I mean, I'd like to see this. We have to judge what it is, but there again, if we could have alleviated some of the wrinkles and done something a little different there, I think it would have gone a lot higher.
Tony?
Yeah, I ended up at 78 on this image, and I really do appreciate the storytelling that's going on here. That had a lot of impact for me, but then I started to look at technically, and I just started having some struggles. If you look at the book that's open down there on the right-hand side, that page edge just kind of disappears into nothingness, like it appears to be dropped in or something, because we have just that edge that is just not sharp like the other things around it. And then I look at her nose, and there appears to be some burning in or something on her nose, because there's just kind of a gray line that goes down along there. So a little bit of struggle with the lighting too, since we're in a studio setting, the lighting could have been controlled a little bit better onto her face. So I just started having some struggles as I looked around technically, but I do really like the storytelling and the idea.
Yes, I gave this an 82, and what Tony just said, I really was looking into this image as if we're looking at this young girl between books and watching her do her artwork, and that's the kind of feeling that I'm kind of just sneaking a peek on what she's doing. And with the staging of all the little sketches in front of her, I thought told a really good storytelling. What I would like to have seen a little better is the direction of light instead of her forehead being so bright. I do know we need some light source from above, but if we could have maybe the light source coming a little lower so we get a little more detail into her eyes. I may have been a little high on a score, but I think the maker showed some really interesting potential by being creative and putting this image together.
All righty, thank you.
All right, next image. Adorned. $80.
Okay, Tony, you want to start this one?
Yeah, I scored this one an 81 in the merit category, and there's a lot of things to like about this. We have a beautiful subject matter, like her placement in the frame as far as the composition goes, some nice leading lines with the material up to her face. So some things I really do enjoy. Couple of struggles that I had though, there are areas that appear to be very painted and then areas that do not appear painted. And so we've got that chair behind her that appears to have been painted, but then the material that does bring us up to her face, that kind of tannish gray material, does not appear to have the same technique on it. So I was really struggling with that a little bit, but there are a lot of positives about it.
Dwight?
Yes, I gave this a 78. Really enjoyed what's going on. I'm reflecting on what Tony said, because that painter type of effect wasn't consistent, and it changes at different areas on the composition. So that was a little of a confusion for me. And I think the lower bottom half could have been toned down a little more, so my eyes would stay in that area of looking at her face. And I actually did miss some of that fancy jewelry, well, that the jewelry around her face. I didn't see that right away. It took me a while to find it.
Dennis?
80, a beautiful portrait. Boy, the same thing that the other two judges said, the inconsistency in the painting and things going on there. It just feels like it wasn't finished piece. And then it's just crazy little things like on the left-hand side, that one little table leg that comes out of the white and all just blown there. And then we got a candelabra with no candles in it. It's just a design with the plants. And then right above it, we got some different shades of all the gray, beige and whites, all those different, then over the curtains. So there's lots of so many different textures in there. It's almost confusing. And I thought it was a merit image.
Okay, question then on this. Do you feel that if it were cropped in to remove much of the background, that would benefit the image?
No, it'd be too tight, in my opinion. I know they're judges. She is a little centered, but at this point, no, they got the framing of the chair and everything else. But I think if you try cropping in too much more, in my opinion, then it's gonna kill some of the ambience of the location. But maybe the other judges have opinion.
No, I think this looser crop is much better. It is part of the storytelling, and it helps us to help my eyes roam around the entire composition.
And I agree. I would not prefer a crop because I do like the leading lines that are leading up into her from her foot, following that material up. I just think what would really help this is to finish the painting out and to paint everything the same amount.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, next image. Lincoln's view of the monument. '78.
Okay, Dennis, would you like to start this one?
Yes, 78 on this image for me. Interesting perspective on this. Nice capture. Again, time of day is one of the issues that we have. And, we have no control over the environment and the weather. I know we got ice on the pond. We got dead grass out there. We got some snow in the foreground that we can't control. But the things we can control are the perspective and the angle on the right and the light. They did a nice job on the cropping. We got that little light intersecting from the lower right hand side that is showing there's light coming there. That could have been toned down just a fraction, and I think the sky could have been brought down a little bit more. But from my angle, I am still seeing like a little halo around the monument coming across the pond there. So I can see without zooming it up or without it being zoomed up. So that's it just needs a few things to help it out.
Okay, Dwight.
Yes, I scored this a 77, and I have the same scorecard what Dennis has. Maybe just to add a little, because this is so graphic, I see the columns on the right side. As we look up toward the top right, it may need a little adjustment on the perspective or the plumbness. I'm not sure, but I'm seeing a little leaning on one of the columns.
Yeah, I was at 78 in the above average category on this one as well. Most of the points have already been made. For me, also that white matte does pull me out of the image. I think a lighter tan would have been a better choice for this image to help keep my eye in there. But most of the other points have already been made.
Well, the white matte didn't white matte didn't bother me, but I agree with Tony, maybe something lighter, but certainly not a darker color in, because then it'd be more ominous. This is the white matte makes it more of a fine art approach, but they're going to use their discretion what they feel is going to work the best.
Okay, no other questions. Next image.
Gilded Sanctuary.
Is this the waterfowl?
Yes.
Repeat the title, please.
Gilded Sanctuary.
Gilded Sanctuary. Okay, thank you.
'77.
Okay, Dwight, would you like to start this one?
Yes, what a wonderful image here. I see some great storytelling. Composition is great. Just a technique, I think, was done well. But a little more on the technique. I wish there was more sharpness within the main subject. I mean, there are a lot of things going on with this image here, but then I'm just losing it because I don't have the sharpness involved where I want to focus on something, the center of interest.
What was your score, Dwight?
Oh, I'm sorry. My score was 77.
Okay, Dennis.
I was at 75, exactly the same thing Dwight had. We got those out of focus reads on the right hand side. The focus issue there. I mean, I wish I was there shooting this with them. It's just a very cool scene, but focus is such a technical issue that we need to really work on.
Tony.
Yeah, I was at 79 in the above average category, and yeah, it does have some impact in storytelling for me, a little bit of creativity with the coloring going on. So it did have some initial impact, but especially the longer it sits here, the more issues I am seeing. So if we go over to the lower right-hand corner, we've got some purple in the grass that goes abruptly to the gold coloring. So it appears to be an artwork mistake there. The focus has been mentioned. And then if we go to the upper right, about a third of the way in, I'm seeing, I don't know if it's a texture or if just some things are kind of in focus with the fog, but those are some distracting lines that are kind of up there, distracting texture. So just seeing some things as it sets here that kind of are pulling my score a little bit lower probably.
All right, thank you.
Next image. Surrendering. $79.
All right, Tony, would you start this one?
Sure, I was at 78 in the above average category on this one. And I like the title, and it goes well with the posing on this beautiful dancer. Some things kind of holding me back. First of all is lighting. I just wish the lighting was a little bit stronger in the image. It had a little bit more direction because it's pretty flat as it is now. And then on the posing, you know, dancers take so much time to be so careful with all their fingers and that kind of thing. So turning their hand and making those fingers a little bit softer in the dancing kind of pose, I think would be helpful.
Okay, Dennis.
Well, I was an 80. I enjoyed the image. Now I'm just going to address a couple of technical things here once I get past the impact of it. I'm seeing the background on the left-hand side do kind of a swoop up and goes up on the right-hand side a little bit. So it looks like the background isn't level, it goes a swoop up. And then right behind the hair, from the left side, from the hair, between the hair and where the swoop of the dress, because I'm seeing repeating lines like something has been repeated in the background or texture. But my biggest challenge is it's a horizontal shot. We got some space in, and if it's surrender, to me is like surrendering to dance, surrendering that, and we are got such a big image in this small frame, and I would a lot rather seeing this into a vertical composition. But what we have here, I feel like she's a little tight in the image itself. So that's where I'm going to go. And Tony's already addressed other things there as well.
You know, I scored this an 80 also, and some of the concerns about doing this as a vertical, that's why I took a little long and plug it in my score. I thought as a vertical, this might have been a much more powerful image. As Tony mentioned about the light, yes, you know, I wish the lights were more powerful or more controlling, so then it would really show off the shape of her body and add some nice shadows in areas where it's needed. But I gotta say, the maker did a nice job in retouching her waistline just to make sure it was pinched in correctly. I think the artwork performed on in that area was done very well.
Okay, no questions in the chat.
Okay, next image. Sister, friend, protector. $78.
Okay, Dwight.
Yes, you know, I gave this a 77. Really enjoyed what's going on, and it's great that the title explain what the storytelling is. Now, I just want to kind of address some of the lighting, because the lighting on the sister is really great. But when we look at, I'm assuming this is the brother, his the lighting is a little on the flatter side. Then as we're looking at his right side, we have that kicker light, where I think maybe that could have been pulled back much more. I'm just a little concerned about the background being a little sharp and in focus. I think maybe the background a little blurry would not create all these vertical lines to separate them in the background. Maybe that's part of the story I'm missing. But I think the maker did a nice job in getting to this point.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, 78 above average category for me. Really appreciate the clothing coordination that was going on. It's a cool background that we have behind them. Nice posing on the girl, especially. Some challenges that I had also in the clothing area. And it's just taking the time to straighten out the wrinkles and stuff in the pants, like having the fella pull his pants up before we start so that they form a nice cleaner look kind of thing. I'm seeing, to me, it looks like the inner mat is not even all the way around. It appears to be a little wider on the left-hand side of the image. So, double check that because that's just a little point of, something that a judge can pick on. And then in the background, towards the bottom of the background, it appears that there is just some purple color sort of painted in there to maybe make it coordinate more with her dress. But if the maker was going to do something like that, I would suggest to have it in more than just the background, or make it look more like a fog or something coming in there, because it just has a feeling of being an artwork sort of thing right now.
Boy, 78, and it's all been said.
Okay, and I don't see any other questions as of now. So thank you.
All right. Next image, Elegance in Red.
Okay.
79.
Okay, Tony, would you like to lead us?
Sure, I was at 79 on this image, and beautiful calla lily subject that we've got going on here. I like the cropping with a long, skinny sort of look to this image. Couple of things just holding me back from getting to that merit on this. One is just wanting a little bit stronger highlight on the curves of that flower to really define those curves and make it have a little bit more punch and interest. And then that really bright white key line just really pulls my eye out of the image.
Okay, Dennis?
Boy, same things. I'm a 79 as well. The other thing is I'm seeing in the mat some design in the mats on the left hand side, right hand side that probably to me kind of is distracting, because I'm seeing maybe flowers. It looks like a little design, so maybe alleviate that, because we got the design, we got the white mat, we got the different colorization, and so I'm just finding that where I'm having a lot of challenges, taking up, and then that iridescent stem. Yes, I know it's green, but I don't need to know it's that green or that bright, and we could tone that down because it is now the brightest part in the photograph besides the white mat. So just watch some of those little things there.
Yes, I also scored this a 79, and the two judges said exactly what I was thinking.
All right. Next image. Thermophiles abstract, excuse me. Thermophiles abstract. Sorry, having a hard time with that one. $76.
Hey, Dennis, would you start that?
Well, I was a 76, and commend the maker, found a cool graphic piece. I'm not sure the title of it. It looks like it might be from a geyser or something. But the main issue I'm finding is focus. I'm not seeing a lot of sharpness and focus in there. I'm liking the design and tones there. Now, this has actually got two images in here, in my opinion. If you take from the red in the lower third, take the red down and crop across there, so you just have the red and black, and then that would have to have more contrast and design in there and have that red and black contrast, or crop right above the black in the red and go up halfway and crop off maybe an inch off the top and just work on the tones and designs. It's hard to find the visual journey through this image because there's so much going on. But the biggest issue is the lack of contrast, the saturation, and the lack of focus.
Dwight.
Yes, I scored this a 75, and Dennis really explained a lot of the issues I was looking at, and you got to give credit to Phil. Got to give him just to read the title. I mean, try to understand this one. But like Dennis really explained the options of cropping. Those are my concerns in looking at this image.
Yeah, I landed at 78 in the above average category. I do find it creative to see this little slice of a place that, creates some interest, and I don't really, exactly know what I'm looking at. But they did kind of echo all of my concerns already.
Okay, thank you.
We take a quick 2-minute break or 3-minute break, please.
Yep, I was just going to say that. It sounds like we have about 13 images left. So I wanted to ask the judges, do you want to take a break now and just finish off? What would be your preference?
A 2 or 3-minute break, and then let's just finish it off.
Okay.
That's for me. What about everybody else?
No, I'm fine. You can
Yeah.
continue. Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we'll see you back. How about 12:05?
Okay.
Thank you.
This is Dennis back.
Tony is back as well.
Okay, I'm here. We'll just wait for the others. Yeah, if we didn't need the full 5 minutes, that's totally fine. I have to say, I am learning so much. You guys are doing an amazing job. Lots of great details.
Thank you.
And Bill's back.
And commend the people for all their wonderful images.
Absolutely.
I just hope the people understand that, you know, in a normal judging, they would not get this kind of critique on images, because the judges are going through and it's one of the ones that are challenged that are any kind of audio conversation on them. And so these people are very lucky, and that's what this is designed for, is for, you know, for them to learn and grow. And if they learn and listen for about everybody's images, not just their own, they're going to learn so much.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. That's absolutely why we're excited to have this, especially prior to our state competition. I definitely have learned every year when I have had feedback after I've submitted, but what a awesome thing to get some feedback before, so you can do something about it this year. So.
A lot easier to get the comments prior to the judging than during the judging.
Absolutely. Sherry, are you back online?
Sherry said she's here.
I'm sorry, I meant to say Sherry Barron. Sherry with an S.
Well, it just popped up on the chat. I think Dwight's here. Tony's
Okay.
here. Phil, is he here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we're ready to go then, I think.
I think so.
All right. Next image, The Great Escape.
The birds.
Yep. '82.
Okay, Dennis, let's have you start.
Well, I must not have been as enamored. I'm a 75. I've seen the birds, and it looks like maybe their snow geese are all taken off there, but I'm just seeing this. It's massive confusion, and I'm having a difficult time of landing on any particular thing. And maybe that's part of the circle of confusion there, or the confusion focus. But I'm not seeing a lot of it in sharp focus, and I'm finding the map may not be conducive to the presentation of these birds in effectiveness. So that's where I landed.
Hey, Tony?
Yeah, I guess I saw it a little bit differently. I was at 84 in the merit category on this one. It had a lot of impact in storytelling for me. I find it almost scary a little bit. I would not want to be there with all this mass confusion and crowdedness and that kind of thing. My eye did have trouble finding the center of interest, and yet I travel through it, and again, I'm getting all sorts of like scary feelings and storytelling going on. So it did land in the merit category for me.
You know, I found this in the excellent category at 86, and as Tony said, I mean, she was mentioning something, and I was just thinking, who's going to clean up all the poop? And I saw that. But you know, being last, I guess saying something, I had time to look through the entire composition. I was trying to find if there were any repeat birds or subject. And I think the maker did a really nice job in putting this together. Like there's a lot of mass confusion, exactly what kind of Tony mentioned. I'm just finding this very interesting, that I just want to keep looking and looking. What I thought was planned out very well. The scale of each animal it seems to be very consistent. It's just crazy things happening. I'm just looking and looking. I'm just wondering, if I had this on my wall, would I stare at it? And it's keeping my attention for a while. Maybe the mat itself, I would change the mat presentation. I'm not sure if a museum type of presentation may help this, but I think the maker with just putting this together, I think I want to just reward him for spending an amount of time just to get this one piece together.
Okay, well, thank you.
Well, Dwight, you said put this piece together. I don't think this is a composite. This is, it looks like birds all taking off at the same time. So I don't think it's a composite. If that's what you were thinking. Although I am seeing a couple birds on that left-hand side that are almost exactly the same. Excuse me, right-hand side and things, but I don't think it's a composite, but it's still and then as I look in the center and on the left-hand side, I see a couple of birds, almost the same pattern. So there are a couple in there, but it's still pretty crazy.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, next image. Prickly possibilities. $77.
Tony, you want to start?
Yeah, I landed at 78 on this one in the above average category, and cool title, cool subject going on here with this cactus flower. I like the position of the big flower in the frame, kind of in that PowerPoint sort of thing going on there. For me, I was struggling a little bit with kind of just about losing some detail in the brightness of that main flower. I thought overall, if it was brought down a little bit, it would be stronger. And then if we go up to that right-hand corner where all the rest of the surrounding around that flower is kind of out of focus and soft, and we go to that right-hand corner and all of a sudden it's very in focus up there compared to the rest, it kind of created a distraction for me.
Okay, Dennis?
77. Echoing Tony, in addition to that, I just felt like the vast real estate that was out of focus. I understand we're trying to bring attention there, but the vast amount of real estate here that's out of focus. And then I'm seeing, I guess the journey through there was a little tough for me because 20 point out the upper right, I'm looking at the upper left, I'm looking down the whole right side and the bottom, and I'm seeing such a difference in the blurries and the actions and how things are moving. It's just really hard to almost jump out on and see what's going on in front of us there. And even though the pink is jumping out there, and again, the focus is an issue for me on this.
I gave this a 75, and I think the title kind of threw me off because I thought I was looking at a little a little caterpillar crawling upon a cactus, and then it's like then I realized no, I was wrong about that, and then I kind of contribute that to some focus issues where I'm losing detail in certain areas that should be in focus and important in the composition.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next image. Support role. $77.
Okay, Dwight, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. I gave this a 77. We have two little girls here, nicely handled. The quality of light going across to them seems to be very even. Now, what I'm a little concerned is when I look down at their feet, it seems like some artwork was performed, and they seem to be floating off the floor just a little. I like to see a little more of them anchored down there. But also, too, going back to the main light, I like to see a little more shadowing upon their face, so they wouldn't look so washed out in this composition.
Hey, Dennis?
I'm 78, and I guess I struggled with the technique because I'm seeing like the tooling and some of their stuff is more paint early and the others more photorealistic, and so I'm having trouble with the technique. I was following through on the same thing, and then I'm seeing the soft lighting, and then I'm seeing the little girl in the front. Her first front hand is all red from being burned down, probably is towards the light, and then I'm seeing the light forearm, then dark, and so there's not consistency. And then the little girl's left hand, the fingertips are burned down and all red as well. And so I'm not seeing a consistency in the lighting and the colorization of the image.
And I was at 77 in the above average category on this one. And what mama doesn't love when her little ballet dancers have the same costume? I mean, that's really sweet and, cute subjects that we have here. But I was struggling with some of the same issues that have already been mentioned. In addition, the expression on the older child's face just says, I don't want to be here supporting the younger child. And so, sometimes just looking for another frame to see if you have an expression that's just a little bit better on there. And then as we go along the horizon line of where the background is in this image, that where the floor meets the background, on the lower left hand side of the image, it just appears to break up there a little bit in one spot, and the wrinkles in the background, which I assume is probably what is the artwork around the feet a little bit, just cause a little bit of distraction for me.
Could I add a look at the stroke line? And I just want an opinion from the other judges that the stroke line, I think, is around the image is a little heavy, and it's I think it was the roundness of the edges instead of being a nice crisp point corner. I thought was a distraction with this presentation.
Well, real fast again to add, Tony brought up the background line on the left hand side, and it's a definitive background, and then on the right hand side that background is lost, and part of it can be in shadow, but there's not a definitive background, so we got half a background and not half a background. So we need to again make sure we have continuity in the presentation.
Agree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next image. Mama. $79.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I was at 78 on this one in the above average category. And there is a lot to like about this wonderful time in a woman's life, and, new life about to happen. Couple things holding me back. One is I just feel like she's too tight in the image. Like to see a little bit more space, top and bottom, to make it more comfortable to view. I think the presentation is a little bit too light for this image. I think a darker gray would have suited it a little bit better. And then just that top hand being so flat to the camera, I think also, could have been dealt with a little bit.
Dennis?
Boy, echoing the same thing Tony just said. I was a 80. I thought it was a really nice image, even though the fact that she's too large in the image, I'm not pun intended, but it's just that she's the top and the bottom or touch the top and bottom. And I'm thinking, do we really need to have all the bottom part? What happens if we cropped at her hip and right underneath her hand and made this a 3/4 shot? Would it be stronger? I mean, maybe investigate some looks on that. So that was a challenge. Tony addressed the hand, but also the neckline. There seems to be a light coming across the shoulder and the bottom of the chin, but not the rest of the face, if you just want to double check that. But that outside drop shadow on that mat really isn't necessary.
Yes, I gave this a 79, and the two judges said exactly what I was feeling. This image here is just so close, and I think it could be corrected to get a nice solid score.
Okay. Next image. A fresh start. $79.
Okay, Dennis.
77. This is one of those situations where obviously it's freezing cold. You got to take pity on the bride and groom being out there in the cold. But as I look at it, I'm seeing such total differences. Because I feel like they're overlit. We got these blue shadows coming across and the back behind them. I don't see any footprints coming into them, which good for them. They clean that up. But I feel like they're overlit for the situation. They got the temple in the background with that backlight coming across there. But my concerns, well, a couple of them is those trees in the background are coming around their head. It just feels like to me if the photographer could have directed them a couple of feet to our camera right and put them in that open space, it would have been a lot stronger without all that foliage and branches coming out of their head.
Okay, Dwight.
Yes, I scored this an 80. I like them to have a great start with an 80, but then as Dennis Dennis addressed a lot of my concerns with the tree of just repositioning the camera or also the couple, just so the background wouldn't be a distraction. And of course the lighting, it feels like it was cut out and put together because of the quality of the light hitting them as compared to the background. So a little concerns.
Yeah, I ended up at 79 in the above average category on this one. And, one of those images that I'm sure the bride and groom really did enjoy. We've got great expressions on their faces. For me, a couple concerns other than the ones that have already been addressed. And one is, the photographer did a really good job of taking the time to make sure that her dress was laid out nicely. But then I go to the groom and we have all those wrinkles in the arm of his tux or suit, and just taking, equal time to make sure that he gets to shine too. So just pulling those wrinkles out. I know sometimes those don't fit quite right, but sometimes you can fold up the cuff a little bit if you need to just make the groom also be able to shine on this wedding day.
And just real quick addition, because the same amount of light is hitting the suit, the flowers, and the front of the dress, but the hand is getting the same amount of light, but it's been burned down to a different tonality. It's almost turning gray as opposed to even her forearm. And I mean, I'm sure she's cold, but it can't be that cold that she turned that different color. So just use caution when you're toning and burning things down, that we don't change colors on things.
And can I add one more point too?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is maybe personal preference to me, but their heads are coming together, and so the upper part of their body says, yeah, I'm in love with you too. But the hand in the pocket just says to me, I don't really feel that. And so bringing that around to touch her hand would create a nice little circle going in the posing, and just say that yes, he is into this marriage too.
Boy, I can remember that, Tony.
Thank you.
If this was in Japan, they don't hold hands in public. It's just a different culture. So.
Okay, so it's a Tony thing, I guess.
We do have a question in the chat. Would you darken them? Is the lighting fixable or need a reshoot?
Well,
Reshoot.
reshoot, yeah, if you can find that snow, I think it can be adjusted. You can't go back and redo, the reshoot would, you could go back and repose by a different day and everything else if it's that important for you to use this image. But I think the maker has captured a nice shot for the album. For people in the book are not going to go, well, you did all this and this is wrong. They're going to look how beautiful their face, their day, their smile. You did a great job on that. So kudos to you for that. Now we're looking at competition, which we're producing a different direction that sometimes that we go for our everyday work. But with that addition, if we start using these kind of competition thoughts in our everyday work, you will see your work grow exponentially.
One last question on this image. As far as the matte color, is that okay?
I didn't have a problem with this, Matt, really, for this image.
No, fine.
Well, I just thought maybe the inner shadow that could be pulled back just a little more because it's coming across like it's out of focus. I didn't think it really need that much of a inner shadow.
You're
Okay.
right. I think generally you can do without inner shadows that go onto the image itself.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next image. Badlands Serenity. $77.
Okay, Dwight, do you want to start?
Yes, I gave this a 77. Wow, what a really nice image. I mean, my eyes get just drawn into the bright areas. I see a lot of sharpness and detail. But what I'm getting a little problem is there are areas that could be toned down, like the rock formations in the background could be toned down a little more. And also the reason I'm saying that is I'm trying to find what to focus on. There are many things going on in this composition that I'm seeing some nice green pasture on the left side, and I see rock formation on the top right side because it's nice and bright. I need to focus on something a little more to bring my score up.
Okay, Dennis?
I was a 76, and kudos to the maker for finding the spots. There again, I think they've got two images in this image, this image, but when we get into these vast locations, we have to make a decisive decision what our focal point is going to be. And Dwight brought it up that he couldn't see what to focus on because we got such great structures and things to photograph. So it's like, ooh, what do we do? And so now we try to capture everything, but not everything is necessary. And the time of day is paramount because we got the streaks of light coming through the center, the little peaks, the shadow on the rocks. So it's just one of those images that I think the lighting was just missed by a few minutes.
Yeah, I was at 79 in the above average category, and the subject matter here is quite beautiful, unique, interesting, going on. Some of the concerns have already been dealt with. The upper half just seems too light to me. I think it could be toned down, and again, this is a one where I think the title doesn't quite work for the image because I think it was something about serenity, and yet there's so much busyness in the image that my brain is having a hard time, dealing with that title and this image and making it connect. So just some problems, but a really beautiful scene.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next image. Southern Belle. $78.
Okay, Tony, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I came in at an 80 on this one, just into the merit category. We do have a really pretty subject here. I overall like the placement of her in the image, although I think a little bit more room on the top would be helpful. Kind of found myself wishing that the hands were toned down just a little bit. But, you know, a nice soft scene with a really pretty subject.
Okay, Dwight.
Yes, I came in at 77, and Tony really brought up some good detail on the image, the strong points. What I would like to have seen with the camera position was moved a little more to the left of the subject, so that posting wouldn't hide her so much. But the depth of field I thought was really nicely handled, very shallow, long lens, and if the young girl would drop her shoulder just a little so we can see more of her neckline, I think we've got a really beautiful image here.
Well, I was 78 on this image, and I agree with everything I said. Contrast, I'm not a fan of the out of focus post in the foreground and leading line, even though it's leading up to her. I'm not a fan of that, and I agree with Dwight that if we would have just moved to different angles, saw a little bit more of her, I think that would have maybe alleviated some of those bushes coming out of her rump, and that left side, or excuse me, right side with all that light area is the lightest part of the image, and then you got that light area behind her shoulder up on the top part of that light area that could have been toned down, and then the flare from the upper top is bothersome as long, and then like I say, it's too big in the image as well. I like the negative space, but we just got almost too much there and some issues there with that could have been alleviated with cropping and different camera angle.
Okay.
All right. Next image. Fed is best. $76.
Okay, Dennis, you want to start?
76, and kudos to the maker for capturing this image. What a bold little statement, this little primate that's getting fed and the parents are looking on there. Know that my challenge is the technical part is that I don't feel it's in focus. The baby's in kind of focus, but the parents on either side are out of focus, and they should be all in the same plane in focus. And so that is a challenge with that bright light coming by there. And I think there's too much there. I mean, I think we could have cropped down and just get the faces of these monkeys, and we could have cropped out some of those areas on the left-hand side and cropped in a little bit more. And I'm not sure the matte with the black stroke is the way we want to go on this presentation.
And Tony?
I was at 77 in the above average category. And yeah, some nice storytelling going on here. Great to be there at a time when you can see into these monkeys' lives and, see how they live. I agree with all of Dennis's comments. And overall, I just feel like the image is probably a little bit too bright. So a lack of sharpness and the being too bright, and then that presentation is distracting.
Yes, I gave this a 75, and the two judges ahead of me addressed a lot of my concerns.
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Next image. Close call. $77.
Okay, Dwight.
Yes, I scored this a 77. What a great image here. I'm looking at this as an illustrative, or even possibly like if this were a reportage type of image that I think the maker got in there. Of course, I'm sure. Well, let's see. Oh, maybe not reportage. This looks like it could have been staged with the strobe lighting, where the skater's just going and with his stick there, and I think it's working out well. But I wish there was more of his is it called a stick? We don't have hockey in Hawaii, but then I wish we could see more of it, like a golf club, more of the club or else a stick that he's using. I would like to see more of that.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I was at 78 in the above average category, and yes, it is a stick. You got it right. And so for me, you know, nice action shot. There is some nice action going on here with stopping them just before they hit the photographer or whatever. But to me, the lighting was not as strong as it could be. Cropping, like Dwight mentioned, to keep the whole hockey stick in there, I think would have been better as well.
I was 76. Yeah, it's a cool shot and staged. I'm pretty sure it is. I don't see anybody in the stands, but you know, this is one of those things where you think, oh, what would have happened if? And I'm thinking, what would happen if they would have put the stick in? What would happen if we would have had the lighting adjust a little harsher, a little more dramatic? But then the pillars and the rafters are really distracting because they're so bright. Yes, they are there, but it doesn't mean we need to show them. All the in the background, the cage, the walls for the glass is all really bright. I mean, the ice is really bright. So it can be printed down, but I think it all boils down to the angle of the shoot and the lighting that we're having there. And powerful shot, but like I say, it's already been addressed. And if we could have just seen more of that stick that would let us dip into it, more powerful lighting, I think it would have done better.
We have a question. Is the orange cast on the cheek on camera left a concern?
In my opinion, it certainly doesn't help.
Okay.
Well, it's not only the orange cast, but we got a green cast across the whole back of the image, and I think it really makes it jump out more because of the probably the mercury vapor or mercury halide lights that's in there, overriding some of the strobe lights, and so we're getting that greenish cast in the background, which is a challenge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next image. There once was a girl who had a little curl.
Ah,
78.
Okay, let's see. Dennis, you want to start?
Yeah, 78 for me as well. You know, we've all had these little uncooperative subjects here, and you know, cute little thing, but sometimes just because we have the whole image doesn't mean we have to show the whole image. Reference that it looks like the chair stand is coming up her rump and it's just coming in there, and we could maybe just crop to 3/4 shot. I understand the mothers want the dress, but if you're using this for competition, it's your image. And then I'm seeing the legs and the toes. I'm seeing like a little line coming around them, and they're going dark and kind of greenish compared to the hands, which is one color, and the face is another color. So we really need to make sure we have a definitive color and choose that theme throughout the whole image.
Okay, Tony?
yeah, I was at 78 on this one, in the above average category. And here is an example of a title that really does work. That was a cute title. It made us all kind of laugh a little bit and brought us right into the image in a nice way. Great subject here. That expression is real and you can tell it's real. I agree with Dennis. I think that the image power and stuff would be in a 3/4 shot, and to crop off that bottom, I think the bottom does nothing but hurt this image. And so that would be my suggestion.
Yes, I came in at a 77, and just agreeing with the other judges kind of mentioned, this work here is like Dennis mentioned, this is great for customer work, but for competition, just you're going to need some more creative cropping for this image here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next image. Lone wolf. 80.
Okay, who would like to start this one?
I can start it.
Okay.
I'm a 77. Lone Wolf, I can understand, he's got this kind of pensive look, and the maker's done a nice job of putting them off to the outside to make them look a little more pensive looking in there. But my challenges are with the lighting, because I'm seeing the lighting coming through our camera left arm, underneath the arm, on the shoulders. The camera right, it took me a second to just ascertain that his arm was there, because it looked like something funky with the light coming through, hitting his arm, then his hip, and going through there. And so, the main challenge for me was the lighting and come across on the face, and then the presentation, how it wasn't definitive, so I knew right where to look with the definitive part of the presentation. And then you look at the wrist and the broken wrist, and it got the shadow coming across there, in the lighting popping it. You just got to watch the poses.
Okay, Dwight?
Yes, I gave this an 84. I was on the opposite end. I just felt the maker was very creative with the lighting, but as concerns what Dennis mentioned, the lighting coming from the right side, that is a problem right there. I kind of look at this like this young guy here with the title, Lone Wolf, and like he's like a tough guy. That's the kind of feeling that I got just by looking at the expression and the way the harsh lighting on his face. That's the feeling I had, and the darkness kind of pushed me to interpret and see the storytelling of this portrait.
I was at 79 on this one. It was just almost there for me. I did appreciate the lighting on his face, just kind of sculpting his face, but the other problems have been mentioned with the lighting. And then for me, just I don't want it to be fully retouched, like maybe you might want the soft skin for a woman, but I do want the little blemishes and things on his back taken care of in the retouching. And then that broken wrist really did bother me, the way it's kind of put into the pocket and giving that really sharp angle there.
Okay, we do have a question in the chat wondering if you guys can see that tattoo, and that it's just one wolf, like one tattoo of a wolf.
It's hard to tell exactly what it is.
Okay.
Yes, it's hard to see what it is, but it's obvious there's a tattoo there, and I'm quite sure it was important for this guy here to just show that. It's like showing off his colors.
Would it benefit the maker to crop this to a horizontal?
No.
Okay. All right, next image.
All right. Who's the fairest of them all? $76.
Okay, Tony, would you like to start?
Yeah, I was at 76 on this one in the above average category. And, really appreciate the beauty of the scene that we've got going on here, this little peek into the lives of these swans. Couple concerns I had was, one was losing the detail in those white feathers. There are several places that it's gone kind of flat where we've lost the detail. And then just the overall color tone, so that we lose the color harmony going into that green grass. And I realize that you can't control what color the grass is, but everything else is on the warm tones, and then I get pulled over into that green grass and it takes me right out of the image.
Hey, Dwight?
Oh, yes. I plugged in also a 76, and, Tony really hit it on the nose. I'd just like to add is that I'm just thinking if we would crop off some of the top margin, maybe that would help. But, unfortunately, you have a lot of these vertical lines, the reflection in the water coming from the grass in the background. I thought it almost looked like banding, or else like when you're printing with like scan lines. That's what I thought initially, but then I realized that, hey, no, this is is just natural. And too bad, I find it to be a little distracting, but I think the storytelling is great. And the title I thought was really funny and very well thought out.
Well, I was a 76, and like other makers, I enjoy the image, but I think there's just a visual journey here that's a challenge. You got the ripples of the water, we got the swans with the grass, and then we got some ripply water above this, a different texture. Then we got all the ripples, the reflections from probably some trees in there. And I, like Dwight, I think it was amazing, judicious cropping, making more slimline if you had this image. But even with all that, the challenge is it's too bright, and we got a loss of focus, a lack of focus on all the subjects. So that would be the biggest challenge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next image. The finishing touch.
That's the weeds, right?
Yep.
Yes.
'76.
Okay, Dennis, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'm a 75, and this is one of those cases where sun flare is not your friend, and I think people think it's very popular, but sometimes on these kind of images, I don't think it's going to be beneficial to you. But in my humble opinion, your image is from the last third of the image on the right hand side, from the flare over, and crop that out. And if you hope that is more your image, I understand what you're trying to do with all the other stuff, but I just think there's so many distracting things with the horizontal line breaking up the vertical lines, and then that flare coming over is a challenge. And then the background, excuse me, the matting is probably not the choice of matting with that you'd want to have with that.
Tony?
Yeah, I was at 76 on this image. Yeah, and to me, we have, you know, this cool kind of backlit subject a little bit, but that flare just pulls my eye right to the center of the image, and I just can't get out of it. So I'm struggling with center of interest, because I don't think that's where you want my eye to just stay there. I would like to be able to travel throughout the image and, you know, enjoy all the pieces of it. For me, a little bit, I was struggling with a lack of sharpness too, and sometimes that happens with the light coming in from the back. But just struggled with some of those things, and also with other things Dennis mentioned.
Yes, you know, I enjoyed this image at 78, and you know, great points were brought out that kind of held me back. I agree with Dennis on the 1/3 on the right side as we view the image. That is a stronger image just by itself. As Tony mentioned, she'd like to see more detail. I'd like to see more detail also too. You know, I'm quite sure the maker out there has another image, possibly without that flare, and it may work better than this one here, because I'm quite sure you took more than one shot on this subject matter. But you know, this is very close, but it's not there.
I mean, one more shot doesn't work. Well, just one more.
None of us do that.
No.
All right, that was our last image.
Wow,
Oh, is
congratulations.
that the title?
The finishing touch.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so creative.
Okay, so I know of 2 images in particular that was requested to be looked at. And we're going to pull this up again. What's the title, Bill?
Girl with a curl.
Okay, the question on this, can you explain a little bit more? You started to, but what is proper catch lights for eyes, and you know, what's wrong with what was done there? Just speak to that a little bit more.
Let me pull it back up. That's one of the first ones we did.
First one.
Yeah. Well, the catch lights, there's a lot of rules, and things have happened with, the classic portraiture and things. But typically, anytime you have your catch lights dissecting your pupils and your iris like that, is usually means your light is pulled around too far. Typically, you want to have your catch lights at 10 and 2 o'clock. I mean, there's some other lighting situations that would apply, but for classical lighting type things, 10 and 2 o'clock within the black of the iris is where we want to see the catch lights.
And yeah, so just turning her nose slightly to camera right would have put those catch lights in the right place. So
Or bringing the light back around to the camera more.
right, either one.
Also too, the shape of your main light does make a difference too, because keep in mind, if you were using a ring light, you don't want to have that ring in her eye. So maybe Dennis and maybe Tony can address that. The shape of that catch light may help with the storytelling or else within the composition of the image.
Right. Most of the time, a light is round, and this looks like kind of like an angular or square light. But see, that's the challenge. We got her right eye, or our camera right eye is square. This catch light. Another one's kind of a diamond shape, and you want to have those congruent size as well. And that's what Tony talked about, bringing the eye around and having the light brought around at the same time. But at the same time, you don't want to bring it around so far that you actually see the photographer's reflection or silhouette in the light, in the reflection. So you don't have it that far around. Or we're not going. It's a very beautiful portrait. Now we get to this point, and I'm sure the other judges will agree. We get to this point after the portrait is just now finessing these little things that the judges won't fixate on, that will push your image to another degree.
So just to clarify, the catch light should be in the black,
Yes.
like in the pupil, not in the iris.
Yeah, if I said that wrong, I apologize. I said in the black, but in the black at 10 and 2 o'clock, if for classical portrait like this, where you'd want to have it typically. But you don't want to have two catch lights. You want to only have the one, but that's generally where, depends on what angle, if it's coming from the right or coming from the left.
Yeah. And are you guys saying that round light sources are better for close-ups like this, or?
It's more pleasing. I didn't say better, more pleasing.
Okay.
And
All
please
right.
don't use ring lights.
Yeah.
Never, don't use a ring light, please.
Okay,
Okay, well, just a quick one. Since you're going to be working on the eyes, go down to her nostril and kind of clean up that area, because look like something is trying to crawl out of the nostril, because you got a really nice portrait, and make it perfect.
Okay.
All right.
And then one more question on the next one. Fluid motion, if you can find fluid motion with the dancers and the red. The question was, would it be best to just have one key light or one stroke around? Is red okay? I think that was.
Well, red is okay. I just feel like, I brought that up as a matter of fact, because I think one would work. But the problem is here's the thing: you got all the dancers, and there are all these different things. You got the swirl thing, and then you break up the composition of the image with double stroke lines, and then to me it kind of breaks it up. So I think it simplify it down with one stroke line. That's my opinion. Maybe the other judges can expand on that.
No. That's what I would agree on. The background, I want to say the tooling in the background, or else the graphic in the background, is very fine and delicate. Do the same application on the stroke line. Make it a very fine, delicate line instead of very strong and harsh, because you're working with a lot of, the title said, I imagine was flowing. So use a very delicate line.
Yeah, besides this, now you have a different spacing on the sides and the top and the bottom of the stroke. So that makes it really, it just looks uneven to that point.
The other question on this image is about the shadows. Is there a good tutorial out there to help with that so it can be better?
I've never explored that, but I'm sure there are.
And the main thing you guys are saying was just having the shadows connect with the feet.
Yeah, I'm looking at, I'm seeing some of the places, and I think Tony brought up, like there's a couple images where the shadow is coming, she's flat-footed. Like if I come in 1, 2, 3, 4 from the right, that little blonde, her foot is, there's a white space between that and the shadow. There's the one coming from the third from the left, it's the same thing. The shadows aren't connected. Maybe Tony can address that a little bit more if she helped brought it up too, but I'm not feeling connection of the shadow with the feet.
Yeah, so basically it doesn't look like very many shadows were put in. I see a reflection, but I'm not seeing the shadow. And so right where the foot would touch the floor, no light gets between the foot and the floor, right? And so there should not be a lighter space right under a foot. And so just making sure to have that shadow put in there above and on top of the reflection is important. So if you look at the little girl second from the left, she does have a connection to the floor. It almost actually looks like a little bit of a cutout area on her leg that maybe wasn't taken care of quite properly in the cutout. But that's kind of what I'm talking about is a need to have a darker area underneath the dancer. And if you go to the original files and look at where the shadows are in those original files, because they were standing on something, then you can see the way the shadows should look. That's the exact tutorial you need for this image, because that shows you exactly where those shadows are.
And be very careful about when you do your cutout around the edges, especially around the feet that is connecting down to the floor. Be very careful, because I think some artwork, a little more time on the artwork or cleaning up as you cut out the bottom of the foot or the toes will look more believable. So it wouldn't look like a cut and paste upon this presentation.
You know, but I'm sure the parents were ecstatic about it.
Oh yeah.
This is a green merit maker. So that being said, you know, you did a nice job to that. I'm sure their parents aren't going to be as maybe as critical as some like the judges are, but you're talking two different things. You're talking client work, you're talking competition work, and this is where we have to look at what's before us.
Well, I think more concerned I'm worried about would be their outfits, cover up their private areas, because that may be a big problem. Guess you got to use a lot of Photoshop to cover up some make those skirts cover up their body parts, so it'll be more how you say acceptable as we judge this.
And
And
so can I address that just a little bit as someone who does a lot of dancers pictures?
Please do.
For them, that is not an issue for them, because they're looking at how far they can stretch and all of that kind of thing, and they're not shy creatures, these dancers. So I know that those poses for dance teachers and those kind of things, and for the dancers themselves, they love those, because they are concerned more with, you know, are they that stretchable, and but I understand where the other judges are coming from too. And so it becomes a hard thing, because that is what your dance instructors and your dancers themselves want. But then for judges, it can be, you know, a little bit uncomfortable. So.
Good point, Tony.
Thank you. So basically, just to reiterate, you also suggested more space between the hands on either side. More space.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Were there anybody else have a request to pull up an image? I think those are the only two I know of. Any other questions before we let our judges go today? I think you guys did such a thorough job first round. Like that led to very few additional questions, I think.
We scared them off is what you're saying.
No, it was just so thorough. It's such an education. And I know people are already asking how soon the rewatch will be. Probably later this afternoon. We just got to download and load up. I think we'll probably be putting it, we have a PPI YouTube channel that we could put it on for a period of time. And hopefully that's acceptable to everybody. That's kind of the thought.
Well, I just want to express to all the makers that taking the courage and taking the time to do all this. And, you know, it really is challenging to enter an image out there and have it put out in front of God and everybody basically, and then having a critique on it. So kudos to you all. And this is a period of growth. And you guys, this is how PPA is just going, wow, we can't believe how many people are meriting and doing so well. It's because of things like this. These people are learning and growing about competition. And I think that's what's so important that we have in this industry right now.
Okay. Do you want to stop the screen share, Phil, so we can give a proper goodbye to everybody? And there we go. Okay, I know everybody had their video off, but I just wanted to say thank you once again. We so appreciate our wonderful judges. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Dwight. We really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for attending and offering your questions as well. Very educational.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Nice to have seen all this great work.
Yeah, really enjoyed spending the morning with you all. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.